And there's just a few things I want to tell you before we get started. It'll just take a couple of minutes. But many of you may know that the mission of the food bank is to move our community from hunger into health. And the way that we do that is really threefold. So first, we focus on food insecurity on a daily basis. So that's where we serve our most vulnerable in the community. Second, as you might be aware, is our disaster preparedness and emergency response. So we've been able to have a tremendous impact in Santa Barbara County throughout the COVID-19 crisis. So we just want to thank everybody who's on the call who has helped in any way, shape, or form with that, to be able to make sure that everyone has the food that they need during this pretty wild experience. And then lastly is our education. So we have a number of educational programs that a lot of people don't realize we have. We focus on nutrition, which is what we're going to talk about today. But we also add in what we call food literacy. So with children, we focus on building skills around cooking, food choice, budgeting, and a lot of other things. But what we realized was that our programs were being delivered really only to those who participate in our food security programs. So we expanded into schools to reach lots of different children. But we also created this Food as Medicine program. And so this way, anyone who's interested in a little bit higher level nutrition information can join in and take away what they need to protect their health long term. So again, my name is Lacey Baldivias. My background is I have a PhD in nutritional biology from UC Davis, and we have a large community programs and education department here. So we'll be sharing that with you today. Food as Medicine itself, as I mentioned, we normally do in-person meetings for this. Obviously, we can't do that now, but I do want to recognize a couple people on the call. Viveka Weiland and Randy Miller have really been instrumental in getting this program launched. And they're also the original creators of this content. So thank you both so much. And I hope they're on the call. I also want to let you know that if you enjoyed this content and this event, we're going to have another one on November 18th. You can save the date. This one's going to be at 5:30 p.m. We're partnering with Rooted SB, and we're going to focus on protein, how much you need, and how you can get it from plant-based sources in order to diversify your diet and get that much needed fiber on a daily basis. And then that's all for the background. Lastly, for housekeeping for today, like I said, I'll be your host. So if you have any issues, you can private message to me in the chat box, and I'll troubleshoot those for you. I did mute everyone and turn the videos off for a couple of reasons. So you're welcome to turn your videos off. The first is that you should know we are recording this, so you can hide your faces or eat your lunch or whatever you need to do. And then we don't want any interruptions so that people can focus on the content. If you have questions that come up, you are welcome to enter them in the chat box at any time. And at the end of the presentation, I will read those questions off to our instructor so she can address them at that time. And then lastly, if you do have your videos off and you're muted, just know that there are a couple of instances where we will ask for your participation. So we're hoping that you'll contribute in that way. That's all I have for the intro. So I will go ahead and introduce our presenter. I'll hand it over to Taylor Brower.
Thank you so much, Lacey. Is everyone able to hear me okay?
A little bit gravelly.
Okay, let me see if I can do something. 1 second.
Is that better?
Better.
Yes? Okay, perfect. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Brower. I am a registered dietetic technician, and I am the current dietetic intern for the Food Bank of Santa Barbara County. I've been helping out with the Food Bank on and off for about 2 years, and I am a member of their education committee. I have a degree in biochemistry and a degree in nutrition, and my passion for nutrition and nutrition education really stems from what a critical role nutrition has in our overall health and well-being. In a world where nutrition information can be so confusing and reductionist, I wanted to share more about not only how nutrients work in our body, but also about how the behavioral aspects that go into nutrition education. Before we get started, I wanted to just start off this presentation with a quick confidence check to gauge how confident we feel about crucifers. You should be seeing a window pop up on your screen. And so some of the questions that I want to just address are, how confident do you feel about what a crucifer is? How confident do you feel about being able to identify at least 5 cruciferous vegetables? And how confident do you feel explaining what cruciferous vegetables are to a family member or friend? We'll be doing this same poll at the end of the presentation as well, just to see how the content of the presentation has increased our confidence in cruciferous vegetables. Great, seeing that about 75% of us have voted, and it's rising quickly.
I don't know what it is.
Great, I'll let it go. Perfect. So as we can see from the results that a good number of us are somewhat confident in feeling or in what a crucifer is. Same thing with how confident people feel about being able to identify at least 5 cruciferous vegetables. And again, kind of the same thing about explaining cruciferous vegetables to a family member or friend. And I hope that this presentation is able to kind of increase the confidence for individuals. All right, so in today's presentation, just to give a quick agenda, I'm going to define what a crucifer is and talk about why cruciferous vegetables are in their own category. Then we're going to dive into a more science-heavy section, talking about a certain compound that makes these kind of vegetables so powerful. We'll also talk about the vegetables within the crucifer family close up, and then we'll close up with some tips and tricks to help increase our cruciferous intake. And then throughout the presentation, like Lacey mentioned, we'll be using some features of Zoom. So just kind of be ready for that, but I'll let you know when we're going to be using those. All right, so can everybody give a virtual thumbs up if they've heard of the word crucifer before today? Awesome. So from the definition, a crucifer is defined as any variety of plant within the mustard family. Mustard, like the stuff that you put on a hot dog? Well, kinda. There are a large variety of vegetables that stem from a single mustard plant. Some of the common ones we know today are cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. But if you look at that second definition there, one who bears a cross in a religious procession, why might this be connected to these kinds of vegetables? Let's just do a quick botany lesson. So crucifer actually comes from the Latin words crux or cross and fer to bear or carry. And way back in the 1700s, the mustard family was named cruciferate because flowers of the members of this family bear 4 petals that are in the shape of a cross. So I have already mentioned broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts, but what other vegetables do we think fall into this category? So we're actually going to split everybody up into breakout groups. Everybody will have 3 minutes to come up with as many cruciferous vegetables they can think of, and then we'll come back and go over them. Don't worry about coming back manually. There will be a timer that should bring everybody back at once.
Oh. Sure.
How long do you want to give, Taylor?
It looks like there's still a couple number of people. Was that because they weren't in the group initially, or they're just joining in?
One of them, I think they have to opt to go into the room. So if they didn't opt, then
Ah, okay.
looks
I
like
see in the
most
list.
people went and then just a few didn't.
Okay. Well, we could have everybody that's still in here say some of the names of the cruciferous vegetables that they think.
Brussels sprouts.
Yes.
Radish.
Yes.
Should we bring them back soon? Or
Yeah, I think we can bring them back soon.
they should be back in 5 seconds.
Beautiful. All right, everyone, welcome back. So I have a list of the cruciferous vegetables listed here. We see common ones again, like that broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, but then there's a few other ones like watercress, bok choy, and mustard greens. Again, noticing that mustard. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to read out this entire list here, but you will be emailed a packet with all of this info to reference. And then just a quick note at the bottom is that this actually does include sprouts or microgreens of any of the shown above, and we'll be getting into that a little bit later. So we have knocked off the first part of today's program, introducing crucifers. So now we're going to dive into the science and help explain why we created this entire presentation dedicated to a single family of plants. So in addition to belonging to the mustard family and having that distinct four-petaled flower, there is one very special compound present in all cruciferous vegetables, and that is sulforaphane. Sulforaphane is a sulfurous phytochemical. Yep, you read that right. Sulfur, the same smell that smells like rotten eggs. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who's forgotten about that head of broccoli that got left in the back of the fridge. Although many of us may not have heard of this phytochemical before, it is one of the most studied compounds and triggers at least 4 important processes in our body. It's going to get a little science heavy over the next few slides, but for me, I love learning how things work, and I know that I personally am more motivated to eat something when I understand what's happening on the physiological and cellular level. So starting at the top, let's talk detoxification. Can anyone tell me which organ in the body is a master detoxifier? Feel free to type your answer in the chat box. Yep, it's the liver. Now, this slide is pretty science heavy, but the main focus is on the 2 phases of detoxification that the liver performs. One is breaking apart of toxins. Words like oxidation, reduction, hydrolysis all mean break down or reduce. And number 2 is the addition of other compounds to shuttle out of the body through our bile, urine, or stool. One word I want you to focus on is sulfation. Notice the sulfur prefix. That this is where sulforaphane comes in. It donates the sulfur compound so that sulfur can then add onto the toxins that need to leave. Think of this like a tow truck. Sulforaphane, the tow truck, attaches a hook, sulfur, to the compound that needs to leave and takes it out. One last note, while we are focusing on a single compound today, notice all of the other nutrients that are needed for detox reactions to occur. This is why it's important to eat a variety of foods to ensure that we're getting all the different nutrients necessary to keep our body in tip-top shape. Now that we've seen sulforaphane's role in detoxification, let's look at how it supports our health by being an antioxidant activator. Many may be familiar with the term antioxidant and have heard that antioxidant-rich fruits and vegetables are good for us. Following this line of thinking, sulforaphane probably is an antioxidant too, right? Actually, you'd be wrong. Sulforaphane is actually a pro-oxidant, meaning that it increases oxidation. But how can something that increases oxidation possibly be good for us? Oxidation is actually a totally normal and necessary process that occurs in our body, and it's a result of how our bodies make energy. If we didn't have any oxidation, we wouldn't be able to perform our daily functions and processes. While oxidation is important, it is equally important to keep it in check with antioxidation, as too much runaway oxidation can actually lead to cell damage, DNA damage, inflammation, and then a whole domino effect. But why would we want to consume this compound that increases oxidation? Let's just take a quick look at a concept called hormesis. From the definition here, hormesis is a phenomenon of dose-response relationship in which something that produces harmful effects at moderate to high doses may actually produce beneficial effects at low doses, aka what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. A good example of this is exercise. The act of weightlifting actually tears up our muscles, but then the act of this actually allows for bigger, stronger muscle fibers to grow in its place. So to keep the oxidation in our bodies from running rampant, we can actually increase our antioxidation levels in two ways: by eating antioxidant-rich foods, foods that are rich in things like vitamin C or vitamin E, or we have the ability to make our own antioxidants. When we are exposed to pro-oxidants like sulforaphane, our body is then triggered to actually start making more of its own antioxidants. All right, we are moving through this. So detoxification in the liver, and we talk about how sulforaphane leads to more antioxidant production. So number 3 is how sulforaphane works as a gene activator. So has anyone heard of the word epigenetics before? Previously, it was thought that if you have a gene for a chronic disease, that was your fate. This term was coined genetic determinism. But even then, scientists couldn't really explain how some identical twins would both inherit a cancer gene. One twin would get cancer, but the other wouldn't. This is because more recently, it's been shown that our genes can actually get turned on or off, and this is influenced by different lifestyle and environmental factors. This phenomenon is called epigenetics. Epi means on top, and it's actually referring to the messages that sit on top of your genes, like little army commanders telling them what to do. You go to sleep, you wake up. It's genes telling, it tells the genes how to express themselves or how to not express themselves, also called gene expression. I actually have a short video that can help us better understand this. So let me make sure that this works.
DNA contains the instructions for building all the parts of the body. But DNA is only half the story. The DNA in our bodies is wrapped around proteins called histones. Both the DNA and histones are covered with chemical tags. This second layer of structure is called the epigenome. The epigenome shapes the physical structure of the genome. It tightly wraps inactive genes, making them unreadable. It relaxes active genes, making them easily accessible. Different sets of genes are active in different cell types. The DNA code remains fixed for life, but the epigenome is flexible. Epigenetic tags react to signals from the outside world, such as diet and stress. The epigenome adjusts specific genes in our genomic landscape in response to our rapidly changing environment.
So from this video, we can see that those little green and red dots tell our genes to turn on or off. And this is just a great way to show that the decisions that we make, like what we eat, how often we move, how much sleep we get, can actually impact which genes get expressed and which don't. So I really love this slide. I think it's a great example of how our choices of what we eat what goes into our body, how it can impact our gene expression. So here at the far left, we have a nice big serving of broccoli, and it goes through the line of our digestive tract. And along the way, our body extracts different nutrients from the broccoli: fiber, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and in this case, sulforaphane. These nutrients are then turned into beneficial compounds, which can then help work with the signaling molecules to turn on our genes. Sulforaphane in particular will help turn on anti-cancer genes by talking to the enzymes that turn the gene on or off. And while we are just talking about sulforaphane here, this mechanism occurs for many other nutrients coming from a variety of foods as well. All right, we talked about detoxification, antioxidant activation, gene activation, and lastly, we have DNA repair. So our DNA is under constant attack. It is normal for our DNA to be damaged in the process of just keeping us alive, breathing, walking, digesting, etc. In addition to the regular hits to our DNA, what we're exposed to in our environment also take a swing. This includes air pollutants, pesticides, chemicals, radiation, cigarettes. The good news is that our DNA is able to recover to a certain extent. However, if this damage continues without enough time for our DNA to repair, it can lead to DNA mutations, which can ultimately give rise to cancer and other conditions. So how do we study the damage that's been done to our DNA by these chemicals? And are there studies showing that it can be fixed? The best way to study damage is actually to study smokers because they have done a lot of damage. In one study, a group of smokers were asked to eat a single stalk of broccoli per day for 10 days. Smokers eating the broccoli suffered about 30% less DNA damage compared with those that didn't eat the broccoli. And in other studies, it's shown that sulforaphane in broccoli can cut the risk of various cancers by 30 to 40% and decrease the growth of lung and prostate cancer. This is done by helping with detox and repairing the DNA. So now we can see the importance that our food choices have on not only disease prevention, but also recovery and repair from damage to our cells and to DNA. Whew, we made it through the technical part of this presentation. I hope you guys are not too overwhelmed. So just as a takeaway, in order for us to be healthy, our cells have to be healthy. And there are certain nutrients from the things that we eat that interact with our body on a cellular level, like sulforaphane. And these help keep us healthy and disease-free. All right, so now that we understand the science behind sulforaphane and crucifers, we're gonna go through some of the lesser known veggies that you might wanna integrate into your diet so you're not always eating the usual suspects like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, or cabbage. So I mentioned earlier that all these vegetables come from the mustard plant, but how did so many veggies come from one single plant? In farming, farmers would select for different traits of the plant that they would like. So they would collect seeds from the plant with those certain traits. For example, selecting for leaves led to kale, selecting for stems and flowers led to broccoli, and selecting for those lateral buds led to Brussels sprouts. Now, this didn't happen over 1 to 2 generations. It takes thousands of generations to get these extreme results to arrive at the vegetables that we know today. So while these vegetables may look different, they actually end up providing a similar nutrient profile. This is why it's so important to vary our diet with different colored foods like bell peppers, carrots, or beets, and why you may hear eat the rainbow to diversify the nutrients you're getting. So just a quick image of the most widely known crucifers, but let's get into the lesser known ones. Starting with radishes. Many may be familiar with these, but did you know that they're crucifers? Radishes come in many different shapes and sizes. There's your small classic red round radish with the leafy green tops. We have our watermelon radishes that are green on the outside, but bright pink on the inside. Black Spanish radishes, And not in this picture are large and mellow flavored cream colored daikon radishes. While many may enjoy them raw, you can actually cook them. This helps mellow out their spicy bite and turns them pretty juicy. Next up are rutabagas and turnips. Mashed rutabaga is pretty common. Just make it the same way you would make mashed potatoes. Peel, cube them, boil them. You can also flavor them lots of ways: salt and pepper, garlic, or even just a splash of balsamic. Treating rutabagas like potatoes makes them a great alternative to them. They're slightly sweeter tasting than their turnips. Turnips have a little bit more bite. But how to tell the rutabagas and turnips apart, there's two ways. So turnips are usually white or white and purple, where rutabagas are typically yellowish and brown. And size is actually the most visible difference. So turnips are harvested when they're smaller and they're tender, where rutabagas are able to stay tender at their larger sizes. Even though you might find some small ones, they're usually found when they're a little bit bigger. So the big yellow one on the left is a rutabaga, and the smaller white and purple ones on the right are turnips. There are a huge variety of cruciferous greens, so I'll only cover a few. Basically, the ones that have been cultivated for their leaves rather than the other parts of the plant. So this slide is what I would call the hardy cruciferous greens. But not on this slide are lacinato or dinosaur kale, which is commonly found in the grocery store. It's more paddle-shaped and have wrinkled leaves. But we see things here like red kale, mustard greens, collard greens, curly kale are pretty common to find at our grocery stores or farmers markets. Other greens that often get mentioned in the same breath with these, but are not cruciferous, but still very important to eat, are chard, beet greens, or dandelion greens. Some ideas is you can actually blanch collard greens to make collard wraps, which can be a great substitute for a tortilla. And this helps make that gluten-free and also increases the nutrient density of your meal. And one of my favorite things to do with kale is to create kale chips. There's actually a salt and vinegar recipe that's going to be emailed out in that packet that you guys are going to get after. Arugula is another cruciferous green. It's also known as a delicate green. So many may be familiar with this one, but didn't know that it's crucifer. But if you just take a look at that flower, you'll see that four-petaled leaf in the shape of a cross. And in other countries, arugula is also known as rocket. Just a little fun fact. All right, microgreens and sprouts. These are nutritional game changers. Did you know that 3-day-old broccoli sprouts contain anywhere from 10 to 100 times the amount of sulforaphane found in mature broccoli? And this same principle applies to all cruciferous microgreens and sprouts. There's more sulforaphane than in the fully grown version. So just to clarify what the difference is between microgreens and sprouts, the sprouts include the seed. Microgreens are grown for a slightly longer period of time and then harvested, so they do not include the seed. But they're both very nutrient dense and easy to kind of throw into salads or soups or sandwiches. All right, so using the annotate tool in Zoom, we're gonna get a little interactive here. I want you to place a sticker on all the cruciferous veggies that you can see in this photo. And to get to the annotate, there should be a more option at the top of your screen, and the fourth option down, I believe, should say annotate, and a bar will pop up and you'll click stamp. And then there's 6 fun options to choose from the stamp, from like heart to a check to an X, and you'll go ahead and place your stamp exactly right on all of the cruciferous veggies that you can see in this slide. Yep, we have some cauliflower, arugula, going for the broccoli and the cabbage. Yep, I see a heart on the sprouts that are kind of hidden right there in the middle. Awesome. Oh, wow, you guys are getting the little broccolis that are up in the corner. I didn't even see that one. Awesome. I think everybody's able to identify those cruciferous veggies now, which is so great. I think we're going to clear the screen now. Perfect. Let's see. All right, so now that we know more about cruciferous vegetables than we ever thought we would, I want to make sure that I send you all off with some tips and tricks to help maximize the benefit that you'll get from these veggies. It may seem like sulforaphane is a substance that's stored in these vegetables ready to use, but unfortunately, it is a little bit more complicated than that. Mother Nature didn't put sulforaphane in crucifers ready-made. Instead, there are two precursors present that combine and turn into sulforaphane. These compounds are glucofuranin and myrosinase. Have you seen those glow sticks where you have to break them so that they can light up? In this situation, the force of breaking the stick helps two compounds come together, and when they react, you're left with something that glows in the dark. Sulforaphane is like that glowy substance. When glucofuranin and myrosinase commingle, it creates sulforaphane. And instead of breaking that glow stick, we have to break the cell walls, either by chewing with our teeth or chopping with a knife. There is one caveat. Myrosinase is heat sensitive and actually cannot withstand the heat from cooking. So if you cook your crucifers before chopping them, you actually kill the myrosinase and no sulforaphane is made. So moving into tip and trick number one, if you chop your crucifers 40 minutes before cooking them, this gives the glucofuranin and myrosinase enough time to commingle and time for the sulforaphane to develop before heat is applied. And sulforaphane is able to withstand the heat. So you can chop before work or buy pre-chopped veggies. But I know what you're thinking. Taylor, I have so many things going on. I can't even imagine starting to cook food 40 minutes before. I barely even know what I'm cooking. But what if I don't have 40 minutes to pre-chop the veggies? You know, you can add mustard powder or any other raw cruciferous veggie. So we all know that mustard is a crucifer. And so it's a way to add in that myrosinase after cooking. And a little can go a long way. In studies, just 1/2 teaspoon of mustard seed powder was enough to create sulforaphane for 7 cups of cooked crucifers. And again, you can also add in other raw veggies like sprouts or arugula to your cooked crucifer if you didn't wait that 40 minutes. And this trick also applies to frozen cruciferous veggies. It can be hard to tell whether these veggies were cut with enough time for sulforaphane to form before being blanched and frozen. So adding some mustard powder or raw cruciferous veggies can help ensure that you're getting that sulforaphane. And lastly, a great way to just increase sulforaphane consumption in an easy to digest package without having to overload on those broccoli, cabbage, or cauliflower is to just add in a handful of broccoli sprouts or microgreens. They are easy to throw, again, like I mentioned, into salads, sandwiches, and soups, and contain that 10 to 100 times the amount of sulforaphane as their full-grown counterparts. All right, everyone, we did it. So that concludes our presentation. Before getting into questions, I want us to take that poll one more time just to see if anyone's confidence increased in knowing what sulforaphane or what cruciferous veggies are. So if you don't mind answering the poll again, it should be popping up on your screen. Looks like about 85% of people have voted. Perfect. Wow, it looks like, I remember at the beginning, there were a couple of individuals who had low confidence or no confidence at all. And it's just great to see that almost 88% of everyone is very confident about what a crucifer is. Same thing with the being able to identify 5 cruciferous veggies. There were a couple of those low confidence or not confidence at all, but we have 90% of people here are very confident in being able to identify that. And same thing along with the explaining cruciferous veggies to a family or friend. That is just great to see that 98% of us are very confident or somewhat confident in being able to explain what cruciferous veggies are. So I just want to end this slide with one of my favorite quotes that was given by one of the previous or original presenters, is that you want to live long and crucifer with your sulforaphane vegetables. So are there any questions? We have a couple of minutes set aside to answer those if you guys have any.
Thank you so much, Taylor. It was so interesting. There are a few questions that popped up in the chat box, so I'll just read those off. The first one might have already been answered. Someone asked, is asparagus in the Crucifer family?
That, let's take a look at our cruciferous list. So similar to our, our chard, there are other vegetables that are green, but don't fall under that cruciferous vegetable title. So asparagus is actually not a cruciferous vegetable.
Thank you.
So it's a great thing to help verify or diversify your intake of vegetables by including some sort of cruciferous veggie like broccoli with some asparagus.
Okay, another question. How do you get all of the benefits from greens such as arugula when one eats it raw?
Yeah, so the arugula is a great way to have the having it raw. You're able to get that sulforaphane from the 2 different compounds that we talked about mixing together, the glucopharanin and the myrosinase. Other ways to increase your all of the other compounds that may be present in greens is some of the vitamins and minerals in greens like arugula are also fat soluble. So including a source of fat with the in your salad, your like arugula salad, or on your sandwich with the arugula on it is also a great way to help increase those fat soluble vitamins to be absorbed so that you're really getting the best bang for your buck with arugula.
Great. And does blood type affect our digestion?
I actually haven't done a ton of research in the effect of blood type on different processes in the body, but that is a good question and definitely something that I would want to look into a little bit further.
Okay, if you don't cut them 40 minutes before, and if you don't add the mustard powder, does it mean they are no good at all?
I would not say that they're no good at all. That is just one effect of one single compound that is in that vegetable. You would still be getting a good amount of fiber and then the other vitamins and minerals that are also present in those vegetables.
Do crucifers help with inflammation?
Yes, I would say that they definitely do help have, like many fruits and vegetables, having that anti-inflammatory effect by providing a variety of different vitamins and minerals, and as well as different compounds. So similar to other fruits and vegetables, definitely can be something to incorporate into and if focusing more on anti-inflammatory foods.
Great. And how many crucifers and how often should they be consumed to maximize these benefits?
That is a good question. I would say that having at least a cup or 2 cups of veggies per day, obviously not wanting to obsess about it, being like, oh man, I missed my crucifers, but working to slowly increase your intake, making sure that you're listening to your body, and also just something that works well for your body, like adding in the sprouts is just a great way to make sure you're getting that without something that might be a little bit harder to digest, like pounds of broccoli.
Wonderful. And just one final check. I think that is our last question. So Taylor, on behalf of the food bank and everyone here, I just want to thank you for such an excellent presentation. It was wonderful. And to everyone who attended, I will follow up with the handout that she mentioned. We also have a podcast you can check out if you are going on walks or anything. It's a great thing to listen to just remind you and kind of revisit these facts. And please look for our announcement for the November 18th session. If you would like to join that, we would be so glad to have you. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. And I'll go ahead and end this meeting. Have a great day.
Thank you.